Hey guys, welcome to the Craft Loft. If you're returning, thank you for coming back, and if you're new, go ahead and hit that subscribe and like button below. So today I'm going to go ahead and show you how to hoop a hat, a structured hat, and we're going to go ahead and embroider that on my Bai V22. So this is a Yupong snapback. It's a pretty popular brand, just like the Richardson 112s. It is a snapback hat structured on the inside. You can see here. So super hard right here. In my experience, they are easier to embroider than the Richardson 112s, but they are still pretty popular and very nice brand. Good quality brand and won't break your pocket. So let me go ahead and get that set up to hoop, and I'll show you how I get this hooped properly so that it's tight, so when we go to embroider we're not getting any bird nesting. Alright, so today as I go to hoop this hat, I'm going to use this tearaway stabilizer, and you can get this already pre-cut in the right size. You can get it on a roll. It just depends on how many hats you're going to be doing or what you need it for. I will have an Amazon link below that will have it will get you to where you can purchase this pre-cut size for hats on a roll or pre-cut to this length. I didn't use that, so I just used my pre-cut tearaway sheets. I think this is a 11 by 11 or a 10 by 10, something like that. And I just eyeball it, right? The designs I do aren't more than 2.5 inches high, or maybe about 4 to 6 inches width. So I just measure this so that I know once I put it on the inside it's going to cover, right? So although this will go on the inside, you can see it covers from the brim to the top, so I'll have good coverage when I put it on my hat hoop. Okay, so here we go. I've got my hat hoop station set up, and I really just have it on this little shelf that I have in my embroidery room. You can put this on any stable tabletop surface, flat surface, that it will clamp on properly, just so that it's very tight, because as you go to hoop, you're going to want to pull your hat down, and you want to make sure that when you're doing that, that this is not moving as you're doing that. All right, so here's my stabilizer that I had cut off of my pre-cut sheet. This piece here, I'm going to get my stabilizer under here. This is the piece where you want your sweatband to go underneath it, not on top of it. So let's be very careful. You want to make sure your sweatband is underneath that. So I'm just going to go ahead and place my stabilizer down and have it sit there. You can tape this if you want to keep it in place. I don't do any of that. I'm just going to put it there because quite honestly, I do quite a few of these structured hats without any stabilizer because they are so hard. But good rule of thumb is always to use stabilizer on something, right? So I'm going to unsnap this, right? And what you want to do, you want to make sure that that sweatband on the inside. So when you start, your sweatband is like this and it's laying flat. You don't want to stitch that. So you're going to want to make sure that you flip that out. And I'm going to flip it out all the way around just to be sure that when I hoop it, I'm hooping tight and my sweatband is not in the way. Alright, so you'll get something that looks just like this, where the sweatband is out. So I'm going to use this. This structured hat has a center line right here. When I go to hoop this, there is a small line right here on this piece. You want to try and hoop your center line up with this as best you can. And then you're going to use this piece here that's going to come over to just make sure that you're in the right place before you lock it, right? So, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see that. I'm going to take this hat, sweatband out. I'm going to make sure that the bottom of the hat is underneath this piece here, all right? Going to come up and make sure the bottom is there. I'm going to hold my stabilizer in place as best as I can. Again, does not have to be perfect, it just needs to be there. And I'm going to get my sweatband underneath this piece. Give me a second, I'll give you a better view of this. All right, I just want to make sure that I'm almost lined up. Okay, so I hope you can see this. So I'm going to bend this brim back just a little bit so you can see it. So this piece here, my sweatband is under there. You can see my stabilizers here. And I'm not going to push this too far. I just need my brim, the brim of my hat, to hit this piece. That's it. Just butt up against it. You don't want to push it too much that it's all the way under, because what this is going to do is going to allow you to hoop your hat so that you're not hitting your needle against the cap frame to break your needle. All right, so all you're doing is button that up. Sweatband is underneath, but turned out. All right, and I have my center line right here, lined up to this center line as best as I can right now. So as I'm holding this in place, I'm going to reach around and I'm going to grab this piece here. This is the lock for the hat, right? As I do that, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the sweatband piece is as flat as I can get it around that clamp, so that when I hoop, I am hooping tightly and I'm hooping right on the seam of the brim, right? So you want to get this, it's got some little teeth in there. You want to get these teeth in the seam where the brim of your hat meets the body of your hat. All right, that's when you know you're going to be tight. So I'm going to pull this. If you've never used your hat hoop before, you may need to adjust your hat hoop. There are a couple of videos out here that show you how to do that, but you may need to adjust the screws so that your hoop can hold tightly and not too loose, and you get it in the right place. Mine is already adjusted. I've got, well, because I've got two machines, I've got 4 of these, but this one I have done just right to where I can go around, and I'm going to look for this other clamp on the other side, put this in here, and before I lock it, I'm going to hold it. So I'm holding, I'm not locked yet. I'm going to pull this over here, and this is for you to be able to see if it's lined up. So I'm lined up pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and lock it down. All right. So here's something that I have noticed when I'm hooping these structured hats. See this seam here? It moved ever so slightly before I locked it, even though it was lined up perfectly. And that's because the teeth and the clamp are going to pull your hat, right? It's meant to pull it tight. So it's going to pull it ever so slightly to the right. So you may get it to where you've got to compensate for that and move your hat just a tad bit to the left. So when you lock it down, your center seam is still even, right? So if you see here, it is as centered as it's going to be right now. That's all. I'm going to go ahead and give you I'm going to show you what that looks like. So let me grab some of the clamps for this, and then I'm going to take this off and show you what this looks like. But from here, you can see that the teeth of my clamp, right, of that strap, it's in that seam, and that's where it needs to be. Right now, you can't really move this, and that's what you're looking for. So your machine, when it came and you had your cap hoop on the machine before you unpacked it, you saw these little binder clips. These were on the hat that was on the cap station, or the cap hoop. When you unboxed your machine, you're going to want to keep these because you're going to use these. I have used the same 4 that came with my machine. I know there are people who have bought extras. I haven't had a need to buy any extras yet. I keep them in the same spot so that I know how to find them. These are going to be important because this is what's going to pull the rest of your hat tight. Now, I do know there's some people out here who don't use it. They don't use theirs at all. They just kind of hoop, and you know, it's tight enough to go. You can do this by trial and error. Here's the thing with embroidering that I have learned, and I know there's some people out here who have done this way longer than me. A lot of it is trial and error. What works for one person will not necessarily work for the next person, right? And as you're going along, you're going to find these little tips and tricks that you learn that work perfectly for you and your machine, right? So don't worry about it and think that because somebody else is not using it, oh my gosh, how are they getting it to work? Sometimes it just works that way. It's just like all threads are not equal. I primarily use Nubro thread for my embroidering, everything, hats, etc. I run it at pretty high speeds with no issues. There are some people's machines who just do not like Nubro thread. So don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Try the fundamental way first. And you know, there are a few fundamentals, things that have to happen, right? This band needs to be in the seam. That's one of the things that needs to happen. Do you have to have the binder clips? If you try it and it works for you and you don't, then you don't need it. All right, let me get you a better view on how this is hooped. Okay, so I took this off of my cap hooping station. I'm hooped. I know that I'm tight across the front. You can hear it, right? Sounds tight. When I feel it, I don't have too much give. On the back, I have my binder clips, and there's just this piece inside the hoop where I just pull it tight so that the front is tight, and I put my binder clips on the side, not snapped. Now my sides are kind of funky this time, and that's okay because I'm not embroidering the side of this one. I'm just embroidering the front. If you were going to go ahead and embroider the sides and you want them to really be really nice and smooth and tight, I'm not doing that this time. I would have fixed it if I were. But here you go. You can see around where my strap is grabbing the entire hat so that it's laying flat, right? So it looks like this before I put it on my machine. And again, you can hear that it's tight. I'm not getting a lot of give even if I push. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm gonna get this on the V22 and show you how you can kind of check to see if you are hooped tightly, because your needle plate should not have too much space in between. And my V22, just FYI, is not in any way modified. The way I got it is the way that I have been using it. I can run my hats at 800 and up without any issue, including puff. I don't do that all the time. I can, but I don't do that all the time simply because I feel like if I stay at about 750, I'm doing good. And I really haven't had a need to have to rush. I have a Mirror 1501 as well, that if it ever came to it and I really needed to pump out a large order very quickly, I could get both of them running. But my V22, right behind me here, this V22 is set up for hats. I hardly ever do flats on this thing. My flats are for my Mirror. But this is set up for hats. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this on here, and we're gonna go and embroider a quick design on this hat. All right, we're back. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on. I'm gonna get this hooped hat on the machine. I'm gonna do a 3D puff design. It's a very quick design in a, what is it, a 3D snake font that I've done before, so I'm just gonna do that one again today. And I'm gonna do a monochromatic look, so it'll be black on black. All right, so I got my hooped hat. I've already got my cap driver installed because, like I said, this is set up for hats. If you look in here, there's a space right here, right? Looks like a little rectangle. This is gonna line up to the space that's also on this cap driver in the back. So back here, there's like a puzzle piece. It's gonna fit right in here. So to get this on my machine, I'm gonna turn this slightly, right, so that I can slide my cap hoop on here underneath. And because I'm standing, it's not working great. Okay, but here we go. So I don't have the brim in the way. I have it sideways, so when I slide it this way, my brim will be to the back. And I was just waiting on it to just catch into that puzzle piece. Once I hear it catch, I'm gonna press on the cap hoop, not on the cap, but on the frame of the cap hoop. I'm gonna press it in until I hear it snap and lock in. You can hear that snap, all right? And then I just want to touch these slightly to make sure it's locked. So I'm locked in here. I've got my design up. All right, it's going to be a quick 3 letters, ATL. This is my 3D foam. This is a 3mm foam from Sulky. I buy this on Amazon. There will be a link in the description below where you can find the same one. It comes in a pack of, I think, 12. You can buy bigger sheets. If you're doing a lot of hats, you can buy bigger sheets from other distributors. I don't primarily do hundreds and hundreds of hats like some people, so this works perfectly for me. You would really ideally want to use the same color embroidery foam as the thread you're going to use. I ran out of black, so I'm going to use green. I'm really not that concerned about it because I'm going to hit this with a heat gun when I'm done to shrink it so that this green doesn't even show. So, not a problem. My number 2 needle, I'll just show you. So I've got my design here, but my number 2 needle here, which is my black, that needle is set up for puffy foam already. So I keep that one tension just right for a 3D puff, and I just put whatever color I'm going to use. I know some people have it where they've got 2 or 3 needles set up for that. Just makes it easier if you're running hats with 50 needles. It's super convenient to be able to have enough needles to have one set up for puffy foam and then the rest for, you know, just regular embroidery. All right, so here we go. Now, just like anything else, I'm gonna put this to the side, just like anything else, you're gonna want to trace this to make sure that your design fits. Here we look at this. I just want to show you this real quick. So here is the center. I have no give between the hat and my needle plate. When I touch this, it's not going down, it's not popping. This is my needle plate right here. That's what you want. You want to hoop your hat tight enough that you hardly have any give, that it's running just like a flat where your hat is right on top of your needle plate so that you're not having any popping, any give. So really nice thing about the V22. All right, so like I said, I have my design set up. I'm gonna grab my 3D embroidery, my puffy foam. Now I can tape this with some painter's tape, or I can hold it. For the sake of this video, I'm gonna go grab some painter's tape so I can tape this so that I can still do some things while I'm showing you. So I grabbed some painter's tape. I'm gonna tape this to the hat so I can just start stitching without having to do anything. I'm gonna trace it first, but I'm gonna put this to the side until we're ready to tape. So I'm gonna trace, and you're gonna trace this just like you trace anything else, right? It's not gonna be any different. You're gonna go ahead and hit trace. This will be a normal trace, okay? And initially I'm gonna trace it without me putting the needle down, etc. All right. So we know we're starting in the middle here. It looks like I'm lined up. Doesn't look like I have to move, but we're gonna do one more normal trace right here. And it looks like I should be good. This is gonna be, right, I'm just lining that up. This is gonna be just like doing flats. You can print out your design, you can put it here to get it marked for your middle. You can do this any way you want. It really depends on where you need your design to be. A lot of people, if they're doing Richardson 112s, they don't even start embroidering right on the seam because that's where you get a lot of the needle breaks. I have never steamed a hat, right? Let me just put that out there. Ever since getting this V22, I've never had to steam a structured hat for it to stitch properly. So that's a beautiful thing, and I'm hoping this time I didn't just jinx myself. But once I have my needles lined up on my seam, I'm gonna say that we are good. So let me go ahead and grab this painter's tape. And again, you don't want to hit this, right? You don't want to hit the strap here because that's when you're gonna break your needle. So I see a lot of people wanting to do these things super, super low. Let me tell you a secret. The ones that you see in the stores are super low because those are stitched before the hat is even put together. You're not necessarily going to get that on a regular commercial or an industrial embroidery machine, super low to the brim, putting it on a cap hoop the way that we are doing. A lot of those hats that you see in the stores that are super low, or they kind of run from the front to the brim, they're all done prior to even putting that hat together, right? So keep in mind, if you're looking for results like that, you're not necessarily going to get them. And I've done a lot of research. My husband wears a lot of hats. We've spent a lot of money at lids prior to getting an embroidery machine. And I have looked at those things and realized that the embroidery can't even be seen on the inside of the hat because it was done before and then the hat was put together. So my expectations are realistic. I want to produce a quality hat, but I'm not going to be unrealistic thinking I'm going to get the same exact results when it comes to logo placement on the front being super close to the brim without risking breaking a needle. All right. Typically, I wouldn't even put this much painter's tape, but for the sake of this video, and sometimes when this thing starts to stitch, it'll start flapping. I'm going to tape this really good. And that's okay. You can cut your 3D puff to, you know, match your design. I'm just not going to do that. All right, so here we go. Move you back. For those of you who may not have a V22 or interested in getting a V22, this is what the screen looks like. This is nice because I can move this wherever I want, right? And I've done a video before, a very quick video on what this looks like. But I have my design set up for the cap hoop. I have my pattern. I'm going to pick my color, and it's already on 2 because, like I said, I've done this before. So it's 2. It's fine. I traced. I'm already in embroidery mode, so I'm running this at 640. Let me go ahead and bump that up. We can do that at 700. Like I said, I've run this hat at 800 before, and I've run some other hats at 800. But 700 is kind of where I feel comfortable at, even though this V22 runs very nicely at 800 with no issues, especially when I'm doing puff. All right, so I'm ready. I'm gonna go ahead and start it up. We're done. Let's go ahead and take that off and see what we look like. So just going to release those clips, do the same thing, turn it to the side, get it off. So like I said, I taped this and I thought I taped it well. Obviously it's painter's tape, right? Just because it was flapping around, but that's okay because once you get that first couple of stitches in, you're going to be okay. All right, so all you have to do with this is pull it off. Now see all the green, and that's typically why you want to use the same color foam as your thread so you don't have a lot of cleanup. It's okay for me because I'm just going to hit this with a heat gun and use my tweezers and just kind of stuff these in a little bit while I hit it so that it will shrink up. But that's what you're going to look like finished, if you can see that. And that's that 3D snake font. Looks really nice, especially in that, if you can see the detail there, that monochromatic look. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, hit it with a heat gun, and show you what that looks like. So here's one of the things that I've seen a lot in the groups that I'm in, people asking questions about. After you do the 3D puff embroidery, how do you clean it up? Because you're always going to get some of this foam, for the most part, sticking out. It may not be a lot, it may be a little bit, but you're going to want to always hit that with a heat gun so that your stitching shrinks and you get it nice and tight and it looks really good. So I always get people asking in these groups that I've seen, you know, how do you clean it up? The foam sticking out, what happens? So I use this little tweezer here, and I love this tweezer. I use this thing for everything. Now, if you did a Google search, there are some fancy tools out here that clean this up and do all this stuff. I find this works perfectly for me. So I'm using the pointed tips here, and I'm gonna get close. Just where I see the green sticking out through the stitch itself, I'm gonna use this pointed tip. And I'm just gonna go in here and I'm just gonna push that in, right? And all you're trying to do, because again, I'm gonna do this as I'm hitting it with a heat gun so that it's gonna shrink up around where I'm kind of trying to push this foam in. And it doesn't take as long as you think it does. I'm just going really slowly for the sake of this video. But see where I pushed that in? Let's see if the camera, all right. There was a lot more green showing there. So I will just sit here for a second and just push those in. Then I get my heat gun, start hitting it with the heat gun, and as it shrinks, you're gonna find that a lot of this foam doesn't even show anymore. So I'm really just doing like these bigger pieces that are out here. Now here's the heat gun that I'm gonna be using. This is a 1500 watt dual temp heat gun. You don't need anything this fancy, you really don't. I just happened to get this from Harbor Freight and I think it was $20, so why not? Okay, so I'm plugged in. I've got my hat. Just gonna hold it like this. I'm gonna put this on the lowest one. It's got 1 and 2. So it's got a low and it's got a high. I'm gonna start it low just to start the shrinking. And then I do go between low and high if I don't see it moving as quickly as I'd like it. All right, so we're gonna turn that on. I'm gonna hold it some distance away and I'm gonna keep that thing moving. You don't wanna keep it in one place. You wanna keep it moving. All right, so for the sake of this, I may turn this up just a little bit. So I'm gonna turn this up onto the second. You can hear that. Now mind your fingers, this is a heat gun. You don't wanna burn yourself, right? But I'm gonna keep this thing moving. All right, and I'm just gonna focus on where I'm seeing the foam come through. So I wanna get to the top, and that's gonna shrink pretty quickly because it's very small pieces. But again, it's very important to keep this heat gun moving. Don't keep it in one place. You can already tell a difference in it just as I've been shrinking. All right, just as I've been heating it up, it's been shrinking that foam. I'm gonna show you where we're at. You saw before how much green was showing. You can see now hardly any green is showing. So I'm gonna finish this up and I'll show you the finished product at the very end. All right, here we go, cleaned up. So the video took me a while, right? Only because I was trying to show you all the steps. Now, if I were just doing this, hooping it, getting it on the machine, getting it stitched, the whole process would have probably taken me, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes total. Not even, because the stitch time for these 3 letters was just a few minutes. And as you practice and you get to hooping, you're gonna get much faster. And once you have your cap hoop and your cap station calibrated to how you need it to be, where you have it adjusted and your band is adjusted just right for the type of hats you do, it's gonna be a breeze. It's gonna take you just right, not even a minute, to get this thing hooped up on a machine and ready to go. The cleanup time for the 3D embroidery will be much faster if you use the same color foam as the thread that you're stitching with. Don't be like me. I've got to invest in some more black foam. But here you go, that's the cleanup. Even cleanup didn't take too long. Hit it with that heat gun, shrinks up really nicely. And now we've got that monochromatic ATL because I'm in Atlanta, right? So that's it. Again, links for all of these will be the thread, the stabilizer, the hat. I'll even drop a thread for the heat gun. I will drop that in the description below. So I hope this helps somebody. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll answer as best as I can. All right, thanks for joining.